We now return to Ballbusters podcast, already in violation.
Hey, how are you guys doing? So today I had the pleasure, and it always is a pleasure, to speak with author Stefan Verstappen. I always want to say doctor because he's so knowledgeable about everything, basically. He is a master martial artist, an expert survivalist, and not just a survivalist. I coined the term, or maybe not, thrivist, because doing just enough to stay alive to me is surviving. But if you want to be comfortable and thrive in any environment, you go to Stefan, you go to his books, and you pick up that knowledge. So today we discussed a lot. We went everywhere from the convoy into what's going on with Ukraine, what's going on in life in general, what has been happening, and what's coming. And that's the scary part. It's also the important part if you want to be prepared and ahead of the game, right? We talked about mindset. And he told me, and he's going to go into detail of this in our interview, you need these two things to survive. You need to be well prepared, supplies, equipment, etc. Food is part of the supply part, right? And then the other thing is the mindset of being ruthless and cunning. And we'll go into that detail as well. Stefan is an author of several books. Let me pull this up so for the people who are watching the video. You can see this. And it says Renaissance Man, the complete works of Stefan Verstappen. This is ChinaStrategies.com. ChinaStrategies.com. Okay? And I have up here on the screen The Way of the Warrior. The Master's Guide to the Way of the Warrior, a book that I've read and I've loved. And I have all of his other books as well. If you look in the side panel here on the left, you'll see The Art of Urban Survival, and then there's 3 other books here. These two, I think, go well together. The Art of Urban Survival and The Master's Guide to the Way of the Warrior. The Urban Survival gives you scenarios that you can practice and you can kind of train with yourself, your family, and just getting that mindset of awareness of your surroundings, and things of that nature. Things that will help you because you'll already have conditioned your mind to think in a certain way that most others maybe don't, because they don't expect the world to be as dangerous and scary as it really is. So that's why this is essential and important, especially for family, especially for women who have to be alone, driving somewhere or being somewhere with their children. Perfect targets for bad guys. You don't want to be part of that. So if you look at this, you'll see in a closer picture, the 36 strategies of the ancient China. Blind Zen. I believe this is a book he actually wrote for the blind, and then an encyclopedia. So you can actually get a survival library from Stefan that has amazing information in it. I own it, and it's a complete library. I think since this was created, I think he's added more books to it. I think there's more than 180 survival books in here. I think there might actually be closer to like 250 or 300. So you get a lot of information, a lot of pamphlets, a lot of quick, easy things to read, given whatever your situation is at the time, and it'll help you get you through a bind for sure. There's some amazing information in there. Some really interesting information in there as well. But I mean, if you want to learn how to forage, you want to learn how to do any of that stuff, that's the way to go. All right. So when you scroll down this sidebar here, you'll see The Way of the Warrior, Art of Urban Survival, the 36 strategies, the Household Encyclopedia, Blind Zen, and then you just see all the way down here. You get all the way. Defense Against the Psychopath, I believe, is a video, if I'm not mistaken. And he also has a YouTube channel, same name, and you'll be able to find. So right here, you'll see this is a very popular video of his, Defense Against the Psychopath. But his entire channel is amazing, and he's a regular on Freeman TV and Jeff Rentz, Tradcat Knight, all the big guys that are also decent human beings. You'll find him on it. It's a nice little group of good-minded, good-hearted human beings that he come together, and it's a nice thing. If you don't know about them, you should look into all those people, because they do their best to provide the information that we need going forward. If we decide that we want to survive and go forward, it might not be a bad idea to check in with these guys from time to time and see what they have to say about the current events and situations. Without further ado, I'm going to play this. I'm not going to do anything hokey or fancy in here because I want Stefan to be able to share it wherever he wants to share it. I don't want him to have to do a lot of editing and cutting stuff out. So we're just going to do this straightforward, and you might see some of this on the upcoming next Wednesday's radio show as well, because I think it would be good to put this out to the radio show audience. All right, you're going to really enjoy this. Stefan was on with us, with me and the Fact Hunter, way back. No, I don't want to say way back. Probably like a year ago, maybe 8 months ago, 10 months ago. This is the first time I got a chance to actually talk to him again since then, and I was really excited about it. And obviously, every time we do talk, I'm always blown away. There's always more new information, and I have a deeper found respect for this gentleman. So here it comes. All right, here we go. Let's go. Let's do this. Hello. Let's see, Stefan. Would you like to get started with discussing the current state of affairs that you see, like from your Canada perspective too? I mean, I don't know anything about what's happening on the streets there and what the political aspects of any of that is, because I'm not. It seems like they're a little bit more police state overt than they are here. I think they're still trying to hide the fact that we've already been succumbed and subdued a little bit. They're still putting a little bit of veneer on here, but Canada doesn't seem like they care anymore. They're just going straight on full Gestapo mode.
Yeah, well, governments don't care. I don't know why this comes as a surprise to people. Governments don't care. They've never cared. And what happened here in Canada, and it ties into my attempt to escape Canada, because I saw this coming. Canada has been a socialist country for 50 years. It started with Justin Trudeau's father, Pierre Trudeau. He brought in all these changes to Canada, and that essentially turned us into a socialist state. And, well, as we can see, the same thing is happening the world over. Every government is being, drawn further and further to the left, to the socialists, to the communists. And this is done on purpose because all the governments are controlled by a central body of international bankers and whatever demonic club they all belong to. So I saw it coming because Canadians are very passive for the most part. I knew they weren't going to fight back, but there is no way to fight back against this anyways, Daniel. What happened in January was we had the Trucker Freedom Convoy, and we had up to 1 million people in Ottawa protesting the mandatory vaccine passport in order to cross over the border into the U.S. Now, when I was a young man living in Canada, we crossed over the border into the U.S. all the time. We never had to show a visa or a passport. The most one of the customs officers would ask for is a driver's license, and in those days they didn't even have photo ID, and that was it. We could just cross over the border. There was no big deal. Canadians were Americans, Americans were Canadians. We went over the border for whatever, rock concerts, shopping. But now it's completely changed, of course. As with all communist countries, what the government tries to do is prevent you from escaping the country. That's why every communist country builds walls and barbed wire fences, not to keep the enemy out, but to prevent people from escaping. And I saw this coming here in Canada. I knew it was a matter of time before they locked down the borders and not allow anyone to travel and escape. And lo and behold, they locked down the borders. Nobody could travel. Nobody could escape. So one of the ways they did this is by demanding a vaccine passport to cross the border. So for truckers that, routinely cross the border from the U.S. to Canada, this was a big pain in the ass because now they're forced to get all the vaccines and the boosters. And many of them didn't want to do it. But not only that, even with the vaccine, you still had to get the COVID test. And if you didn't agree to all of that, then you'd be quarantined for 2 weeks. It was ridiculous. Nobody can do business like that.
Right.
So we had almost 1 million people in Ottawa, which is the capital of Canada. We had tens of thousands of trucks. I was out on the highway on the overpass near the highway where the truckers passed through. I was there with hundreds of people. We were all waving Canadian flags. We were waving on the truckers. I never seen such popular support for a protest movement in my life. And the people that were out there, these were good people. A lot of blue-collar workers, farmers, families, mothers, children, grandmas, toddlers. Everybody was out there supporting these truckers.
Yeah, you don't bring children to an event if your plans are to do anything violent. So that alone right there tells you that the most of the media they were reporting on was a complete farce with the way they labeled them. I'm sure I'm jumping ahead right now, but just the toddler aspect of it all. You don't bring your child if you think you're going to do something violent. You know what I mean?
No. And, the other thing is it was deathly cold, too. It was like minus 20 with a 15-mile-per-hour wind. It was freezing out there. And the fact that people came from small towns all over the country to go and stand in the freezing weather to say hello to the truckers and offer them support. And not just that, we put, people gathered in churches and they made sandwiches and homemade soup, and there were checkpoints and rest points along the route where people just went and they brought them, food and barbecue and soup and pizza and everything to support these truckers. And again, these were good people, hardworking, middle class, blue collar, and honest, down to earth, salt of the earth people. Then, I get back from waving hello to the truckers and I turn on the YouTube and there's Justin Trudeau calling them all a bunch of Nazis, which is just infuriated me. Grandma out there, the little toddler, mom and her kids in the stroller, they're Nazis. Oh, not just Nazis, but misogynists and racists. Oh, it was just, you son of a... I can't tell you how angry, even just now, thinking back on it, It infuriates me. You low-life piece of crap. This is a guy who never worked a day in his life, who has no qualifications. You wouldn't trust this guy to run an ice cream stand, let alone a country, because he has no qualifications, no work experience at anything. And you're calling these hard-working, down-to-earth, honest, Christian people Nazis? But this is the left, this is the liberal, this is the communist, that's all they can do. We've heard it now. I'm sick of it. I'm tired of being called a Nazi and a racist. And anytime you disagree with a liberal or a leftist or a Democrat, well, you're automatically a Nazi. Okay, give it a rest now. It's such a low-level response. It's not clever. It's nothing. It's just calling people names. Oh, you're a poopy head, so there. This is the level where...
use that word.
Huh?
Yeah. It's so dangerous to use that word because it's the common dummy that's watching TV that all of a sudden now they're cancel culturing you and all this other stuff because they hear the TV telling them that you're a bad person and the worst person that they could, drum up from history as far as what people's conceptions of what that word means,
Yeah.
It's just, it's a terrible spiral of things. People's businesses have been affected by it. They're freezing people's accounts for handing out those sandwiches you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
They're going after them pretty hard.
So, and then to make matters worse, he runs and hides for 2 weeks. Complete coward. What a coward. How any self-respecting man would feel the need to run and hide rather than, go and talk to them. These people had bouncy castles, for the kids. They had hot tubs set up. They had barbecues and pizza. And, when you see the footage, they're dancing, they're laughing, they're singing. Oh, my God, what a threat. But better institute martial law, run away and hide, and then institute, the Emergency Powers Act, which is essentially martial law, because what a dangerous threat. The overreaction and the overreach is astounding. We are dealing with morons here, but we're dealing with morons in our government the world over. As much as I despise Justin Castro, I look to the south of the border, and I can't believe what I'm seeing there either. Biden and that cackling cow Kamala. I mean, are you kidding me? These people are idiots. Can't everybody see that they're total idiots, morons, lunatics? Why can't people see that? Anyways, so yeah, then they started shutting down the bank accounts. One side effect of that was there was a bank run up here. Listen, I don't trust the bank now either. Did I say something on YouTube? Did I criticize the Democrat Party? Did I criticize the Liberal Party on one of my radio shows? Does that mean my bank account is going to be frozen? I don't know. So people are taking the money out of the bank and putting it in cash, and a lot of people are buying gold and silver. I bought some gold and silver myself. Better to stock up a little bit more gold and silver because, two reasons. One, I don't know, at any time, I probably said a lot of anti-liberal things in my life, and it's probably on the YouTube. Is the government going to take my money? They can do that at any time, without a court order, without a trial, without charges, without evidence. They can just shut you down because they don't like your opinion. I mean, that is the definition of tyranny, and that's the definition of a communist tyranny, which is what we have here. So I bought some gold and silver, and usually they deliver it really fast, but it was a couple of weeks late. I called the guys up there, they're in Alberta. And I said, guys, where's my order? And they said, oh, we're getting to it. I said, what, are you low on inventory? And they said, yeah, we're waiting for another shipment to come in. I said, you guys must be busy off your ass. And they said, you have no idea. So many people are suddenly ordering gold and silver now. Gold and silver bullion, by the way, not stocks. It's physical gold and silver.
Right, yeah, you would need that for sure.
Yeah. So, and I checked some of the other websites that I sometimes buy bullion from, precious metals, and you go through their online catalog, and they're out of almost everything. So that's one of the side effects of Justin Trudeau seizing bank accounts, is that people are pulling their money out of the bank and putting it in, and a lot of them are putting it into gold and silver. And who can blame them? Because, first of all, the government can take your money at any time for any reason with no excuse. They can just seize it, right? We've seen that.
Yeah. And
second, is the money any good anyways? Right? Look at the hyperinflation. They're saying 27%. What are they saying? 17%? No, we know it's more closer to 27, 30%, 35%. We are losing our money every day. The value of our money. So, if I take the money out down by gold a month from now, is my money worth half the value that it is now? I don't know. Probably, because there's no end to this hyperinflation. So those are the results of Justin Castro and his tyrannical communist push. And then they hear this son of a bitch traveling around Europe saying, oh, we must respect other people's opinions. Oh, my God. I mean, the hypocrisy. Please, somebody, we need to arrest this guy. He needs to be charged with treason. He needs to be brought to the gallows. That's it. I can't think of a better fate for a lowlife like Justin Castro. But here's the lesson, folks. We had 1 million people protesting, peaceful. We had truckers from all over the country, and we had truckers coming up from the United States too to join in. This was like a dual protest with Canada and the United States, and our protest went on to inspire similar trucker convoys in Australia and Holland and the United States. Although I don't hear much from the U.S. convoy. It seems to be nipped in the bud before it got started. But anyways, and what was the result of the government declaring martial law? Look, these things don't work. Protesting doesn't work. They have the power, and if they feel the slightest bit threatened, they will all run to their bunkers, and they'll call out the stormtroopers to run over you with horses, to hit you in the face with batons, to shoot you at point-blank range with smoke grenades. This is what they'll do. This doesn't work, people. And, I look back, and I've been saying this for a long time. Listen, I support you protesting. I support people going, down to City Hall and walking around with signs and all that. But to be honest with you, it's not going to do anything. It will not help in the slightest. And as proof of that, I'd like people to go back to 2003 and just before the start of the Iraq War, which we now know was all started on lies. And at the time, the conspiracy theorists said these are all lies. That's the difference between conspiracy theory and conspiracy fact. It's 6 months.
Yeah.
We were right about all of this stuff from the very beginning. We were right about every one of these conspiracies, and lo and behold, it turns out it was all true. But in 2003, we had 30 million people protest against the war. There was 1.5 million in Barcelona, in London, in Amsterdam, in Paris, in Berlin, in every city in the United States and Canada, and half the cities in South America. Every city on the planet, even Hong Kong and Tokyo, they all had massive protests. 100,000, 200,000, 500,000, 1 million, 1.5 million people in the streets of every major city in the world protesting. Don't start this war. Don't go over there. Let's not start the war. And what happened? 2 weeks later, we were at war. I mean, it didn't make the slightest bit of difference. So even if we can get everybody in the country out to go and protest, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, Daniel, because we are dealing with psychopaths. They don't give a flying fluck about what the people think or say or feel or do. We're nothing to them. We're cattle. And they get a big laugh out of it, seeing everybody running up and down the street with signs. They think it's funny. So we need to change our tactics, people. And we cannot rely on elections. Look how obvious it was, the stolen election there, the last election there last year. I mean,
Right.
It was obvious. I mean, it's almost like you couldn't make it more obvious. All the fishy shenanigans that went on. Like when they're counting the ballots, they put up cardboard to block the windows so people can't watch them. I mean, that means they're doing a good job. They have nothing to hide. Of course they got something to hide, you lunatics. I worked in an election once when I was quite young, and it was a national election for prime minister, and I was what was called a scrutineer, and that is they would have one person representing each. At that time there were 4 parties, now there's 6, I think. One person from each party would stand behind the vote counters, and we didn't have electronic votes. It was, you had a piece of paper, there were 4 names on it, you put an X near one name, fold it up, put it in the box. So we were standing behind there, they'd open up the box, they'd pull out the papers, they would show the people behind them who it was they voted for, and they would put it in that box and count it. I mean, it was open and transparent. So when I saw that the voting booths or the polling booths or the voting booths locations were kicking people out so that they couldn't watch them count the vote, that's all I needed to know. They were rigging the vote, of course. It's so obvious. So protesting doesn't work. And forget about signing petitions. You might as well just piss in the wind. It's useless.
Well, even worse, you might as well just, tell them all of your thoughts so that they can threat assess you and put you in a little black bag yourself,
That's right. You might black bag you. So stay away from and then protest look, that's not going to work either. It hasn't worked in the past. It's done nothing. And as we saw now, even when you have such popular support, the entire country supported the freedom, except, of course, the lunatic left. They were, upset because obviously truck drivers and families are all Nazis. But, it means nothing. And if they want at any moment, they can say, well, we declare emergency powers and we're going to take your money. We're just going to take it out of your banks. And we're going to take the money out of your crowdfunding campaigns. They went
That was
into...
insane. I
That
couldn't
was-
believe that they had any legal. How do you say? Well, we're taking all of this $10 million. This is the GoFundMe one, right?
Yeah.
And we're just going to give them to NPOs that we decide are. That's well. What about the people who actually donated it? They donated it to a specific purpose, and now you're repurposing that. How did they not get to sue you?
Yeah.
So.
Exactly. How do they not get to sue you? And that's the other thing. I know there's a lot of speakers going around talking about, sovereign citizenship and how to fight them in the courts. And I don't believe a word of it, Daniel. I wouldn't waste any time listening to it or trying to implement it because you're going to fight them in the courts? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? They own the courts. They own the judges. They own the prosecutors. They're all in on it. They're part of the evil system. And you think you're going to go in there and you're going to, spew some legal jargon. Case number 35A sets the precedent that blah, blah, blah. No, you think they care? They don't care. They're not going to rule in your favor. Look at more recently the Juicy Somole hearing where he finally got sentenced. Now, first of all, I knew the guy was lying the very first time I heard that story. I mean, really? White guys, 3 o'clock in the morning in Chicago? Downtown Chicago? Are you kidding me? Not unless they had a death wish. Because anybody that knows anything knows that if you're a white guy, you stay out of downtown Chicago after dark. And then at minus 20-degree weather? No, nobody's doing that. I knew the guy was lying his butt off. And then, but a classic psychopath, okay? This Jussie guy, classic psychopath. And, finally, lie. It didn't, I'm surprised they convicted him. And they sentenced him to 150 days in jail, and 5 days later, he's out. So there you go. There's your legal system, okay? Because after all, Jussie Smollett, whatever his name is, he's a liberal left-wing lunatic, and they protect their own, and the laws don't apply to them, and so he got out. Meanwhile, where are all the conservatives that were arrested on January 6th? They're still in jail.
Can I interject there real quick too?
Yeah.
You know what? This is how de-Christianized or unchristian the United States is now. I went through Catholic school. I did the Sunday school, all that stuff. I got my first communion, all that stuff. I went to Christian churches after that with my parents. I didn't know what the heck the significance of January 6th was. It's the Epiphany Day. I had no idea. The Epiphany Day is like, the star prophecy, like the sometimes they call it the Three Kings Day in like the Eastern, like Russia and stuff like that.
No, I don't know anything about that.
So I'm sure they picked that day on purpose because they're little, public ritual stuff to mar that Christian holiday now with something that's negative, and you'll forever know January 6th. You just have to say the date now, and people just assume it's the Capitol riots and not the Epiphany.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, wouldn't surprise me. I mean, these people are absolutely demonic. They are. Whether they worship, well, no, they probably worship demons. I'm not saying there are demons, but these people worship them anyways. And they use it as an example. So that's the story about what's been happening up here, Daniel. So far, the mandates haven't been lifted. They stopped confiscating people's bank accounts, Well, because the banks got upset, they were getting a run on the banks, and I think they put in a phone call to the dancing soy boy there, and said, "Look, stop, confiscating people's money because you're making the whole country nervous." But it's too late. The damage has been done. We all see now how quickly they can come and take your money out of your bank. We have no rights, okay? Understand, you have no rights. You can't sue them. There's no redress to a court of law. You aren't served with a notice or a warrant, or there's no legislature that had to be passed. Nothing. They just decided to do it. And for the flimsiest of reasons. Oh, you donated to a protest movement? Never mind how many hundreds of millions people donated to Black Lives Matter.
Right.
And did anybody go after them? Did they go after that money? We saw what they did. They caused billions of dollars worth of damage in the United States. They burned down cities and police stations, dozens of murders and arsons and uncontrollable looting and vandalism. I mean, it was, I remember the
Massive
Black
rapes
Lives
and,
Matter.
Chaz. Yeah.
And
When they did that Chaz thing over in Seattle, they were raping people off the streets, just grabbing them and, taking them down alleys.
yeah. And did I see police busting heads? No. Did I see police horses running over little old ladies? No. Did I see police out there shooting, tear gas canisters point blank into reporters? No, nothing. Did they seize their money? Because we know Black Lives Matter is part of the left, liberal, communist toolbox, one of their weapons to destroy our country. That's the purpose of Black Lives Matter, is to destroy America and Canada. So your politics is going to get you into trouble. But anyways, we need to change tactics on this, folks, and that's what I've been telling my listeners and the people that call me for a consultation on preparedness. And what I say is that we've lost this war, Daniel. There's no getting this back because we have no weapons, none. We don't have the courts. We don't have the media. We don't have the law. We don't have the police. What are we going to do? Protest? We know that doesn't work. So we've lost this war, and the logical outcome of this communist tyranny is total slavery. But before they enslave us, the first thing they will do, or the next thing they do, and then this COVID pandemic was just another weapon in their toolbox. Look at the damage that has done to our economy, and of course, it did what it was intended to do, and that was bankrupt. I would guess at least 60% of small businesses, just destroyed them. So if you ever had the American dream, and Daniel, I know you do, of starting a small business, working hard at it, making enough money to maybe buy a house, get married, have a couple of kids, forget about it. That's done now. They've destroyed it. And that was the whole point of, or one of many points of the pandemic, to destroy Western civilization. They've done a pretty good job of it.
There's not even a mandate in most places now, and I still, especially Arizona, in Yuma, there's not, and I still see people wearing their masks. I don't understand. There's so much, and just like Yuri Bezmenov said, there's just such a subversion that at that point, these people literally need to be reborn, because they're never going to be able to comprehend anything. It doesn't matter how much evidence is right in front of their face.
Yeah.
They're still gonna. There's not even a consensus on what's happening to them, or even an awareness that it is happening.
Yeah.
They just bounce their heads off walls and doop through life, and they don't even see how they're being manipulated and abused.
Yeah. Well, they are the zombie apocalypse.
Exactly.
Yuri Bezmenov said that once you've reached the stage of demoralization, and he predicted back in what was it, 1979 or something like that, when he did that interview, that it would only take another 10, 20 years for America to be completely demoralized. So that would bring us to the current millennium. And he was right. These people are completely demoralized. And he said in that interview, even if you were to take them to Russia and show them the gulags and show them the concentration camps and show them the mass graves and provide them with all the evidence in the world and the proof and the photographs and the personal testimonies, and they still wouldn't get it. He said only, maybe, once the boot is on the back of their neck and they feel the muzzle of the rifle pushing against the back of their head, in that last second while they're still alive, they might go, oops, I get it, and then they're dead. And this is what we have now. Those people can't be saved, Daniel. They cannot be saved. I'll tell you why.
And they weaken everybody else who is aware, because that just dilutes the water.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's like in the movie The Matrix, where Mobius is taking Keanu Reeves down the street, and he says that anytime any one of these people can be an agent, that's why we have to treat every one of these people as the enemy. We're in that exact same situation. Everybody you see with a mask, that's a warning, folks. That's a warning that this person can no longer think for themselves. They no longer have a cognitive ability. And they are, to be honest with you, our enemy. Look, what we are going through right now is biblical in proportions. This is even greater than biblical. We are witnessing now the war between good and evil. That's what it is. You know, I'm
Absolutely.
I'm a notorious skeptic about things, but there is no better way to describe it. We have absolute inhuman evil on the one side, and I know what these people do. I know. And I know the level of evil they are willing to descend to. To be honest with you, Daniel, if most people knew what I know, they couldn't tolerate life anymore. It would drive them insane. They would have a breakdown, a mental breakdown. They would commit suicide if they knew what I knew, because the evil we are up against is inconceivable.
It is inconceivable, and that scares the crap out of me, because, not because of me. Dad can die, no big deal. But Farah, absolutely not. Nothing can happen to her. And that's what, it's, when I was younger, or when this is the thing, like, I was telling myself I would never bring a child into this world, and then I got comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I got a business that was working. Life was no longer kicking me in the nuts as hard.
Yeah.
Still squeezing them every time they had a chance to, but just not as hard. So I had enough money. I finally said, okay, I can afford a family now. And therefore, I always wanted to have one, and I have one, and she's perfect. And I put all my life in devotion and time and effort and funds into making her life the most magical, wonderful, secure, and protected. And so what if it's surreal in the sense that it's not, she doesn't have to get faced with the harshness of reality. That's what I want for her. I want her to understand love and compassion and empathy, not chaos and perversion and disorder. So her world is different than everybody else's because we make it that way. If they start pulling away my ability to do that and eroding my ability to keep those walls up around her, that's terrible enough. I don't want to even think about them starting to scale those walls and climb over the other side. You're right. Obviously, I can't even take myself out at this point if I wanted to, because then I just gave up on her. So it puts you in a really bad position when you are aware of. I'm probably not even aware of half the stuff that you are, Stefan, and it's a constant daily struggle to just even get out of bed sometimes. So I go to the gym and I just bang my head against that wall instead of trying to say, at least I'm doing something. I'm getting stronger, because if I have to fight, I'm going to be stronger. You know what I mean? Something so stupid, but it's like you don't know what to do with yourself, so you just do everything. You know what I mean?
you lose yourself in your work.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Well, I firmly believe it is the job of us men, real men, warriors, to protect our children and our women folk from the harsh reality of evil. They don't need to understand it. They don't.
They don't actually. Usually they don't. You don't get a whole lot of support when you're saying, maybe we should do this thing.
No.
Maybe we should bring her here.
No.
Even though she has a little achy, maybe we shouldn't go to the doctors. Maybe the doctors are bad people. Maybe the doctors collect information and then all of a sudden you get a knock on your door. Maybe in this type of environment, you got to think about all that stuff that seems like you're paranoid, but you're not. You just see the things for what they are. You know.
Yeah. So it's our job as warriors to protect them from that. Doesn't mean they can't contribute to preparedness and stockpiling food and learning some first aid skills and learning how to use a firearm. No, they need to do that. The women and the kids. I have a family here that I'm very close to. Very good people, and they got a couple of teenage girls. And I said, listen, it's time that I come over there and give them a firearm safety course. Because the father has firearms in the house, and there's no reason why a 13, 14, 15-year-old girl can't learn how to use a firearm. As a matter of fact, they should. Now, I don't need to tell them how bad the situation is and what the dangers they are facing in their life are. Like I'm older now. I'm not going to be around for the worst of this. But it's the kids. They're going to grow up in this hell. You better start training your kids right now. If you hope that your kids and your wife and your family are going to survive the next 5-10 years, you better train them. There's a movie called Hannah, where a father is teaching his daughter how to be a ruthless killer. You got to do that. Martial arts training, self-defense training, firearms training, wilderness survival training, medical training. Get that into your kids. It's
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, it's funny is because I live in upstate New York, which is, if people get a false impression, you see the word New York. No, it's like Vermont. There's more cows than people where I lived in upstate in Saratoga area, and I used to always like daydream when I was out hiking and stuff like that, like trying to figure out, could I do this? Could I, And then it's funny because I'm thinking that this is the way to go. You just, you're hiding in the woods if something ever happens. And I have this sense all my life that someday that might be something that you would need to do. So learn how to camp, learn how to do all this stuff. And then when we first started talking, and I started listening to some of your stuff, you're like, yeah, that's good for like 4, 5, 6 months. But then you're getting a little delusional, or you watch too many movies if you think you're going to be like Rambo for like the next 30 years. So I was like, oh.
Yeah, no, listen, I thought the same thing too. My generation grew up under constant nuclear annihilation threats. The Cuban Missile Crisis occurred when I was like 5 years old. And when my family bought their first house, you had a bunch of options. Do you want a deck? Do you want a second-car garage? Do you want a fallout shelter in the backyard? That was part of the package, because the idea that we were going to face nuclear annihilation was very common. The movies, the TV shows, everything sort of said, whoa, it's going to be nuclear annihilation. So likewise, I thought, I'm going to have to spend, years living in the forest. And, well, I learned how to do that, which is good. It's not wasted skills by any means. But, yeah, that's something that we have thought about. But, like I said earlier, what I plan for is to survive this, not freezing my butt off in a pit shelter in the forest. No, I plan to survive this in relative comfort. Now, there's 2 ways to do that, or there's 2 strategies we need to employ simultaneously in order to do that. One is to be really well prepped, and the other is to be really ruthless and cunning. During these times in history, world wars, depressions, pandemics, droughts, and starvation, there are people that made a lot of money during those times. Mostly the psychopaths that run things. But there are people that live through that in complete and total comfort, even luxury. But we can do the same. But you just have to be a little bit more cunning. And, you know, I've got a few videos out called Urban Survival Strategies or Urban Survival Tactics. I forget now what I call them. Guerrilla Tactics, where I talk about the ability to think on your feet and to read a situation and to assume different disguises and different personas so that you can fit into whatever clique or community or group happens to be dominant in your neighborhood at the time.
I just hope they didn't listen to you or watch your videos, because then it's you kind of get your spot blown a little bit.
What?
I said, when you're trying to blend in, just make sure. Hopefully, they didn't know about your YouTube channel.
Oh no, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. I have, you know, like I always said, you need a cover story. I have a cover story for that too. If somebody should recognize me from my YouTube channel, I've got a perfect cover story that will ingratiate me to them. Here's the thing, though. My study of survivalism shows that even if you don't have weapons and food and medical supplies and shelter, I mean, even if they were to drop you naked into the forest or into the big city, if you're smart, if you have skills, you can survive. The two-part strategy is, let's not make it that difficult on ourselves and get some supplies, get some, you know, equipment, survival equipment, disaster preparedness. Let's get that. It'll make it easier for us. But understand that is not the end-all and be-all, because if you are smart enough, cunning enough, ruthless enough, tactical enough, you will survive anyways. So those are the two strategies we must employ. And what I tell my clients and the people when I talk on radio, and I'm going to say it again, the most important thing right now is to make sure you can survive the next 5 to 10 years. After that, who knows what the situation will be like. These psychopaths tend to turn on each other eventually. And they will destroy each other, because that's what psychopaths do. Kamala Harris might be president next week, but Hillary Clinton will poison her and run for president. Even though they're both on the same side, they're both psychopaths. Doesn't matter. They go after each other. So we need to, you know, us good people, fighting on the side of good. And again, this goes back to what I'm talking about with the people that are still wearing the masks. And look, this is the time in history to choose a side. There is no standing on the sidelines. If you are not actively participating and making efforts for the side of good and morality and wholesomeness and life, then you are on the side of evil. And all these people wearing the masks, like I said with the Matrix analogy, they are your enemy. They did not choose the side of good. They chose to go with the side of evil. And them wearing a mask and getting the jab and all that nonsense and supporting the Ukraine, look, that is just proof that they chose the wrong side. Right. So those of us, the good and decent people, and I think there's still a lot of us left. We're the minority, 20%. I'd say about 20% of us are good. That leaves us with 80% of the evil people. But the good news is the evil people are also really lazy, really stupid. So, you know, one man can take on 4 of them. One honest, hard-working, decent martial artist, warrior, salt of the earth man can easily beat 4 Antifa, right?
Yeah.
So we can still beat them, but we need to work together. And first things first, be prepared. Be prepared. Get your supplies. Number one, like I said, the first thing they do is they starve you. So number one, everybody listening right now, get as much food stored in your house as you can. You got an extra $100 in the bank, go buy groceries. You got an extra $5,000 in the bank, go buy $1,000 worth of groceries. Because the starvation it's a really cheap trick. It's so easy for them to do. They cut off the supply chains, they close down the groceries stores, they close the distribution centers, they put roadblocks up on a couple of border crossings, and insta presto, people are starving. A month later, they're eating their cats.
And Stefan, I mean, the whole thing with the gasoline prices, just making it so you can't afford anything anymore is just another method of making starvation occur, because it's got to be shipped in by trucks that use gas, so that's going to make everything cost more.
Yeah. And that, again, that's part of their plan. Yeah. These high gas prices, it's all part of the greater plan of starving us to death and destroying the economy and marginalizing, all the decent working people in the world. I mean, who have nothing left, right? They've taken the small businesses. We're being taxed to death. Please, folks, go and watch my Paradise Stolen series, especially the episode called Why We Are Poor, in which I clearly and easy to understand show that the government takes from us 80% of everything we earn and spend. 80%. They're almost taking everything.
Just because they do it 10% here, 30% there, 40% there, doesn't mean it doesn't add up.
Exactly, and that's what I show in the video. It adds up to 80%. Okay, well, it's 40% income tax, which is an outrage already, 40%. There was the, for those who like history, you might remember the Robin Hood story and how Robin Hood would rob from the rich to give to the poor. Well, he didn't rob from the rich. He robbed from the tax collectors, who were mostly, by the way, had the monopoly on tax collecting in medieval England. Even in the Roman Empire they did, because the Herods and the Alexanders from Greece, they were the ones that were the tax collecting families. Yep. Yeah, exactly. So eventually the English people, they were tired of being taxed. And they rose up in rebellion, and they forced evil King John to sign the first in history Bill of Rights for the common man, called the Magna Carta. Correct. Which is the inspiration for the Constitution. Never mind that 2 years later he reneged on it. But anyways, that's what rulers do. That's what these psychopaths do. Oh yeah, I promise you'll have some rights. Oops. No, I changed my mind. You have no rights. But anyways, they rose up against the king because of the high taxation. You know what they were being taxed? And this is not the common people, because the common people were not being taxed at all. It was the barons and the earls that were being taxed, and they were being taxed 5%, 5.0%. And the king wanted to raise it to 10%, and the whole country went nuts and rose up in rebellion and forced the king to sign that contract.
Isn't that amazing, the contrast of what people put up with now to what used to, it wouldn't take much at all to be, if you're being abused, all hell broke loose. Now it's like we're just pincushions. Just keep on poking us, keep on bleeding us dry.
Oh, and we are being bled dry. Peasants in those days, they had something like 90 paid holidays a year too, and there was all these religious holidays and things like that. So, I mean, do you get 90 days off a year from your job, from your work? No. The taxes went up to 10%. They lost their shit, and they rebelled. We pay right off the top 40% on income tax, 4 times more. Where's the rebellion? Where's the rebellion? 40%. Then we've got 10 to 15% sales tax, so now you're paying 55%. And then you're paying state taxes. Then you're paying property taxes. And then you're paying taxes on gasoline and groceries and cigarettes. And then you're paying what's known as hidden tax. And hidden tax or embedded tax is the tax you pay on everything you buy. And that accounts for, nobody knows, you can't figure it out. It's impossible to figure it out. You buy a car, every light bulb, every piece of wire, every screw, every panel, every piece of plastic, all of that stuff was taxed by the government during manufacture, and it was taxed again when it was sent to the assembly plant, and it was taxed again at the assembly plant. And you pay for that tax. The manufacturers, the distributors, the assemblers, everybody passes the cost of taxation on to the consumer, the end product, the end consumer, and that's what we are, end consumers. So we pay everybody else's tax, a proportion of it. So you cannot ever figure out really how much, if you buy a car for $10,000, $5,000 of that is the cost of taxes on that car. You got to pay it. So when you add up the embedded taxes, which conservative estimates, another 20%. So now you're looking at 75%, not including property taxes. And then when you have to get a driver's license, look, that's a tax, right?
Exactly.
They stole from you the right to operate a vehicle, and now they're going to sell it back to you. That's called a driver's license, right?
Yeah, and then you get pulled over because your blinker wasn't on or something like that, and there's another tax of $250 for that,
Yeah, all of that is tax. You add it up, it's 80%. But it gets worse. There's another hidden tax called inflation. So we are now paying an extra 20% tax because our money is being devalued by 20%. So that's another tax. So we're up to 95%. I mean, can you imagine, Daniel, if the government said, okay, you're approaching retirement age, you're 60, you worked 40 years of your life, we stole 80% of everything you ever earned, we're going to give you back 35 years worth of your wages. Could you retire? Could you buy the cabin out in the country and retire? Could you buy a little boat? Could you leave something for your children and grandchildren? Of course. We would be wealthy beyond imagination if it was not for taxation. Because we produce. My God, people produce. They work their asses off. And they produce a lot of that wealth. And they don't get to keep it. It's taken by the government. So we wouldn't have homelessness. We wouldn't have all these financial problems. You wouldn't be worried and fretting and staying up all night wondering how are you going to pay the rent, how are you going to pay the mortgage. Those concerns would never occur if the government would, let's say they tax us half of what they tax us now, drop it back down to 50%, take it down, and that would be like getting a 50% raise on what you earn. Would you have money problems then? Of course not.
Heck no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty insane. And when you're bringing that up, I would think the thing I was thinking about is now they have estate taxes as well. You have your inheritance tax. So God forbid somebody dies, now they're going to tax you for the sake of the transfer to the wealth transfer that still isn't theirs. They're gonna tax you again. Plus you have the burial and all that stuff you have to pay for. So anything that they can do to get everything back that's substantial property, true wealth, they're gonna suck it away from you generation by generation until you have nothing. There is no hand-me-down anymore. It's gonna be whittled down each time it changes hands.
Okay, so let's talk about one more thing, and it's something I don't really know anything about, and that is the Ukraine crisis. But to be honest with you, I don't need to know anything about it. I already know everything I need to know. The whole thing is staged. It's designed to distract us from the COVID narrative, which is falling apart now. I mean, it fulfilled its function. It destroyed small businesses. It, caused hundreds of thousands of people to commit suicide, which is good, And it's destroyed our economy. So it's fulfilled its function, but they're not done with us yet. We are going to get the mass starvation. That's coming. And they're setting it up right now with the high gas prices, and we don't even need to go into how they are disincentivizing the farmers from growing crops. They can't get their fertilizer, they can't get their product to the stores. They
said a lot of the fertilizer that we get, so I guess Russia is a big fertilizer producer.
Yeah. And then, all those shipping containers being stalled off the port of Long Beach and so on. All of this is to make sure that the farmers don't have a chance to produce here. And they're even being paid, what a shame, they were being forced to dump, thousands of gallons of milk.
Remember you said before another currency for trade would be like buying a few cases of vodka? And what happened? They started asking people to get rid of all the Russian vodka.
Look, I recommend everybody watch the movie Wag the Dog, and that will explain exactly what's going on in the Ukraine. Have you seen that movie, Wag the Dog?
Yeah, it came out in like 97 or so. I think I was still like graduating from high school, but it had Tom Hanks in it, and I believe Robert De Niro, right? It was like the
not Tom Hanks, but Robert De Niro, Woody Harrelson, and
okay, yeah.
What's his name, Dustin Hoffman. Great movie, and it shows you exactly how this goes. They stage everything. They create the war videos from scratch, where they have the woman wandering through the ruins. Of course, it's against a green screen. It's all computer generated. And this is 1997. They're already showing this stuff. Now they can do a much better job of faking war crimes. And despite the fact that they can do a better job, they're still stealing footage from video games and old newscasts and things like that. But that's because they're lazy and cheap and stupid. Believe nothing that you hear or see about the Ukraine. For me, all I need to know is that every psychopath in the world and every liberal, communist, lefty lunatic is screaming to save the Ukraine. So I already know the Ukraine's the bad guy.
Right.
That's all I need to know. I don't have to go into the politics and the history and all that. Why would I need to go? If Al Capone and Bugsy Siegel and Machine Gun Kelly, they all on the side of this guy, I already know it's not a good guy. The celebrities and putting the Ukraine flag on Facebook and all this nonsense. And God forbid you can't even say anything against the Ukraine because you'll get censored again, more censorship. That tells me all I need to know. I'm not even allowed to talk about it. I'm not allowed to look at it. I'm not allowed to get a second opinion. So I already know. The Ukraine's the bad guy. Not that Russia's the good guy. I think Russia is cahoots with all of it. I think they knew their plan, Okay, Putin, the COVID's fading now. Now it's your turn to enter the world stage. Okay, boss. That's the way it goes. They're all bought and paid for. They're all playing a role. So I would believe nothing about what's happening in the Ukraine and Russia. However, knowing that the psychopaths that run things are determined, hell-bent and determined, to genocide 80% of the world's population, I would not put it past them to escalate this into a third world war so we can really get down to the business of slaughtering innocent civilians and making people's lives wretched, because that's what they want to do. I worry about that, Daniel. I worry about that. Normally I would think this is probably going to blow over, but the timing, it's coming right at the heels of the pandemic, and we've already seen how they've gone out of their way to destroy the world with this pandemic all over the place. And now this, and then to listen to all these politicians and the media, let's go bomb them, kill them all. I mean, come on. Does any media outlet, does any politician say, let's come to an equitable agreement and end all hostilities? No, none of them are saying that. Oh, they want war. They want war. Okay, now I already know.
They were calling for the assassination of Putin. Even Hannity and freaking Tucker, in a more bland way, was doing that. It's insane.
It is insane. It is insane. These people are really, really pushing for World War III. That's why I'm a little bit nervous about that, Daniel. We'll be okay here, I think.
Yeah.
There might be a couple of nukes go off in the U.S., a city here or there.
How are we going to know, right? We don't know if they did it to us or if it was them. You know, it's so easy to just false flag them and then blame another country so that you can escalate
Sure, of
war,
course.
you know?
How do we know U.S. military aren't going to set off a nuke in Iowa on themselves? You know that Winston Churchill, the great hero,
Yeah.
you know he shelled London. He ordered his
Shelled London?
He ordered his artillery to shell London because the Germans, when they were coming over to bomb, in retaliation for the British bombing civilian targets in Germany.
Right.
So the Germans sent their bombers to bomb, but they avoided bombing civilian targets. They went for radar installations and military bases. This wasn't getting the English people riled up enough. So Churchill had his own army shell London civilian districts to up the civilian body count so that they could enrage the English population and get them bloodthirsty for war. So do you think the American government, the people that run these things, won't set off a nuke here and there to get Americans to back World War III? Of course they would.
It's so funny that you said that too, because I actually read that in a book called The Bad War about how they were doing that so that they could coax German. They were also going after German civilian targets to hope that they would retaliate against them in the same manner and then demonize them even further. But I was just thinking before you said that, I was like, and if they do hit us, you know, here, it's not going to be a military base. It's going to be a community.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, and then I thought about Dresden. The moment Dresden popped in my head is when you started telling me about that. So I thought that was pretty funny because we're on the same wavelength there.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Folks, the biggest enemy for humanity is your own government. It has always been.
That's a crucial thing to know. That's such a crucial place to start. Like, you have to start from there. Otherwise, you don't get the whole world, you know?
No. If you don't get that basic point, then you won't understand what's going on in the world. Oh, well, the politicians are stupid. No, they're not stupid. They're very smart. What they're doing is killing you.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, but they're incompetent. No, they're not incompetent. They're doing exactly what they need to do to kill you. Government has always been the enemy of mankind throughout history, going back to the earliest recorded accounts from Babylon and Sumer and Egypt. Their government. They're the ones that start the wars. They're the ones that enslave their own populations. They're the ones that kill everybody. So number one thing, remember, your government is out to kill you. So this is why believe nothing you see in the Ukraine, but on the other hand, double your preps. Get ready, folks, because if they do bring in Third World War, then the famine will be right afterward. Famine will start right after that.
Maximum casualties. So 1, 2, 3. You know, you get the vaccines and whatever damage that's doing. Plus, if they're sending troops out there that are going to have myocarditis problems, I mean, it's a good thing that war isn't, isn't stressful, because I'm sure that's not going to play a part into like a bunch of people dying just because of that.
Right. Yeah. So that's my take on the Ukraine. I don't want to be too negative and scare people, but again, this is it, folks. This is the war to end all wars. We either live through this and wait for them to implode, which they always do, but it might take 5-10 years. In the meantime, those are going to be rough 5-10 years. You're going to be hungry. You're going to be persecuted. You're going to be in danger of being rounded up by the secret police and sent to a re-education extermination center. We got to survive all that. Then, once they've torn themselves to pieces and they've succeeded in destroying civilization as we know it, that's when we need to come out and rebuild better and reestablish a benign civilization again, which will fulfill the cycle. This is how the cycle goes. It's the four-stage cycle. We are in this stage of evil and chaos, but all things pass. And the next stage is the stage of warriors and rebuilding. And that's what we need to live to see. And to do that, be prepped. Get your teenage daughters to learn how to use a firearm. All those things. We got to get ready for this now. There's no fooling around. Be serious. You should be spending a good portion of every day doing something, whether it's training or getting an education and learning different skills, or going to the farmer's market and buying an extra month's worth of food, or getting some seeds together, or setting up your raised bed gardens. So every day you need to spend, at least an hour, 2 hours getting ready for this. And that way, we'll survive in comfort. We'll just sit back. Don't join the army. Don't get on the front lines. You're just going to be cannon fodder.
That's not what we mean by warrior when we say that. That doesn't mean go out and get yourself killed for a bad cause.
Exactly.
That's quite the opposite.
No, look at the reports coming out now about American and Canadians that volunteered to fight on behalf of Ukraine.
That might be a little bit of, I'm sure they feed that into the public consciousness, regardless if it was true before or after. You know what I mean? Because they might have. I have a hard time believing that there's a whole lot of people who even buy into this anymore. But of course there is. And then you float a story like that, and then more people, because of that whole hive mind thing, will jump on and volunteer as well. So one begets the other,
Yeah, it might only be a few hundred people, but the ones I just watched some report from an American mercenary, and he said it's a complete shit show. It's a clown circus.
So
Nobody knows what they're doing. It's deadly and dangerous, and they want to get out, but guess what? They can't leave. They're taking everybody at the border that's of fighting age, and they're refusing to let them cross the border into Poland. And they're putting them back on the bus and sending them back to the front line. You're cannon fodder.
God.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So he said he escaped, but they had to take off all their gear, no uniforms and all that, and they had to sneak over the border. Being a warrior is to defend your own ground first.
Yeah, families, yes.
Yeah, defend your family, number one. Defend your community, number two. I would never join the army. Listen, if I've got Russian troops running around my backyard, shooting people, okay, I'm out there.
Or Ukrainians, for that matter.
Or Ukrainians, or North Korean, or Chinese, or Red Dawn. Yeah, I'm out there. I'll grab the shotgun. I'll get some ammo. I'll be out there defending. I'll shoot these sons of bitches if they come in my place. But I'm not going to go travel 6,000 miles to die for some other psychopaths that...
Yeah, some vague reason that we can't quite pin down yet.
Yeah, for some vague reason, because we saw some video from a video game.
Yeah, and that's what I like about your book, Stefan, and it kind of gives me some kind of hopes too, is like when you say that the warrior, it's a phase, it's like a cycle, and the way civilization works, and this is what I bring it up, like warriors are needed in order for civilization to build strong, and then once they get strong, they forget that they need the warriors, just like Athens did. They just respect them, and they don't. Then all of a sudden, they're too violent, toxic masculinity, whatever the case may be. Real warriors are noble people who protect their communities. Period. The end.
Yes.
And they just happen to be very proficient at being violent when they need to be, but only when they need to be. It's not something that they just go around going crazy with. It's not. We're not talking about Genghis Khans here. We're talking about people who have nobility and character and respect, but they don't put up a BS. And then you have the phase where that's not appreciated anymore, and they're all called Nazis.
Yeah.
But then they get to the point where everything's in disarray, and the warriors come back up again. They're the most thankless. It's the most thankless profession you could ever be in, and it's the most honorable as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the old saying, the only thing that can stop bad men with guns is good men with guns. And we got a lot of bad men with guns right now. So, and
to
listen,
it.
this will also end in blood. Make no mistake about it. Yeah, they will, try and starve us, but there will be a lot of blood spilled before this is over. And again, like I said, I don't want to tell people what I know, and you don't want to tell the women folk that, and the kids. You want to keep them. Let them have some innocence for a little while, for crying out loud. They're not going to have much when they get older, the way things are going. But at least when they're children, let's not scare the bejesus out of them. But for us warriors, blood will be spilled.
They're fighting the Mystery Babylon people who have strange beliefs from aeons ago that are hell-bent on a utopian society of communism and, complete control over their peasants. And that's all they want. That's all they care about. So,
yeah,
'tis what 'tis. And whatever way they get there, it doesn't matter to them because they have absolutely no. It's not like they have mercy or empathy or any kind of compassion for anything else that's alive. As far as they're concerned, you're an animal, and you should be repurposed like cattle. That's all there is.
And they don't need us. Look at the robot technology. They don't need us.
Right.
They don't need a workforce.
I had one last thing I had to ask you, and that's is about the floating story out there of the potential cyber attack. Now, whether or not it's domestic cyber attack and they blame somebody else or not, because surveillance and everything that they've built up is so important to them as far as keeping us under control, I have to ask the question: do you think there would be a cyber attack? And if so, do you think there's a two-system thing going on here where if they take it down, it would just be like the commercial and residential type of cyber whatever, but they would still be able to access their drones, AI and Starlink would still be able to keep their stuff running so that they could keep us under control. Meanwhile, we don't have any communications. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm pretty sure they have a dual system already in place.
Probably,
It's
yeah.
what do they call it? The continuity of government. They'll have their own Internet of Things still operating. I mean, it'd be pretty easy just to take down the consumer internet.
Right. Very simple. And then
Very simple to take that down. They could have their own, and we wouldn't know who or why or what, which is why I recommend everybody get a ham radio, so that when they do take it down, and I'm pretty sure they will. I don't know. Listen, all they have to do is shut the power off for a month, and that's it. Okay, people will be starving. They'll be eating their cats and dogs. Like we've seen in Venezuela. They even broke into the zoo to kill and eat zoo animals. I mean, it's tragic. It's just tragic. And the other thing too is like, these people aren't just killing us; they're killing nature. Look at all the dolphins and the whales that wash up on shore and die in the thousands. What do you think that's from? It's from, right?
their pollution, yeah, everything that they
From the
dump in
pollution and from the electromagnetic frequencies and from the
Right,
sonar and the 5G. Look at the thousands of birds that drop dead out of the sky. Now they're saying that deer can have COVID. Well, what is this, an excuse to poison the deer? Well, we saw that happen in Australia.
Yeah, yep.
Right,
Those pellets, those giant, like it was almost like a fluoride, but it was like some kind of sodium something.
Yeah, they dropped pellets of poison over forested areas so that the deer would eat it and die. I mean, what we are up against, and again, I don't want to get into all the details of how evil, the evil is that we are facing, but they're not just trying to kill us; they're trying to kill all life on the planet. That's why I say it's so demonic. And even if it kills them, but they don't think about that. It doesn't occur to them that they are part of a system. They are part of nature, and if you kill nature, you kill yourself. They don't care. They don't care about that. They think they can get by on growing their own meat, and probably they eat people at Soylent Green, for crying out loud. I wouldn't doubt that for a moment. Just look at the TV shows and the movies glamorizing cannibalism. Come on, you think that's by accident? You think this was just a unique story idea? No, it's not. There's, I read a lot and I'm an author. There are tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of really good stories in the world. Why does it always have to be zombies and cannibals? You
Right.
know?
Why is it always got to be negative and depressing when there's a lot of good things that that happen in life too? Like the news is not made to make you happy; it's made to make you terrified of everything.
Yes, exactly. While the government is our number one enemy, number two enemy is media. Make no mistake about it. And I don't see a lot of people talking about that. We need to attack the media. First of all, cancel your cable subscription. Never watch TV. And where possible, sabotage their transmission towers and interrupt their interviews and harass the so-called journalists. These
Put
people
pressure on them, exactly, instead
put
of having
pressure on them.
canceling us. Yeah.
Because the psychopaths in power wouldn't be able to rile everybody up into World War III if it wasn't for the media. They are number two enemy. Make no mistake about it. They're dangerous. We got to fight them at every turn that we can. Passive resistance, but it may come time eventually, someday down the road, where we need to assassinate these sons of bitches. Don't think it hasn't happened before. Under the communist regime, of course, they rounded up the writers, the artists, the intellectuals, the professors, and murdered them.
They did that in the Ukraine during the Holodomor too, 1932 and 33.
That's right. They will not hesitate for a moment to murder us. And if we think we can just protest and declare our sovereign citizenship,
Yes.
they don't care. They're trying to kill you.
If a cop asks you if you're a sovereign citizen, first of all, that's a contradiction of terms, and they're trying to get you to basically identify as a group that they've already deemed as being a domestic terrorist. So don't do it. Don't say yes, because sovereign is the word that you're getting stuck on, and it's not the right thing to say to a police officer by any means.
No, you're just putting a target on your back.
Right.
So, folks, keep a low profile. Stockpile as much food as you can. Food, number one importance. Then after that, medicine. Make sure you got some medical skills. Take a first aid course. Take a first aid course. Take the advanced one, the 2-day one. Take some firearm training. If you don't have a firearm, get one. If you can't get one, then, well, there's not much that can be done. Then at least train in how to use a staff and a baseball bat.
Yeah. Right.
How to improvise weapons. Get some quasi-military self-defense martial arts training.
Home Depot has crowbars and axes and big hammers you can carry with you, all kinds of cool stuff.
All very excellent weapons.
Yeah.
And don't despair if you don't have a gun. What happens in guerrilla warfare is you and two of your buddies wait behind in a dark alley for one of the police officers to walk by. Then you hit him with the crowbar and you take his gun. Then one guy has a gun and your other two buddies with the crowbar, you wait in a dark alley for another police officer to walk by. And you shoot him and take his gun, right? That's how guerrilla warfare works. You can get weapons. You know, I sit here where I'm at. I look out the window because I got my office set up and my computer in front of the window, and I can see everything that goes around here. There's a police vehicle that comes and patrols the parking lot 3 times a day. There's only one cop in that police vehicle. So I know if I need a pistol.
You know what's also funny about that is, you think of places like Holland, and you've been there, haven't you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, do you see a police officer more than once a year there?
Mm-mm.
And then you look at the place like this, where it's supposedly just as peaceful and serene as, the persona of Canada is just a nice, happy-go-lucky, laid-back, but it's swarming with cops. You need that if people are peaceful and not agitated by their government. You only need that type of presence to keep people at bay and keep them, hesitant if there's some kind of abuse going on to those people,
Yep. Well, we knew this already. I put this in a video out, I think 10 years ago, that we saw what was happening. How come the Department of Homeland Defense ordered, what was it, 20 million rounds of 9mm, 100 million rounds of 12 gauge, and suddenly all these police departments started getting MRAPs, military vehicles, tanks. What? Because, the neighborhood weed dealer is so dangerous. No, they were getting ready for what's coming. This was
The guy in his boxers and the shotgun, they have a MRAP instead. It's like that's what they're after. They want overkill for us.
that was already an indication of what they were planning. I knew that already. Or this was 10, maybe 15 years ago when they were doing that.
What was the name of that video? Do you know?
We are at war.
We were at war. Okay, I'm gonna make sure I put that in the show notes too.
Yeah. And again, all these things are all part of their toolbox. The inflation, the gas prices, the pandemic, the Ukraine crisis, the Black Lives Matter, all of this, these are all tools to destroy Western civilization. It's what Sun Tzu in his book The Art of War would call the strategy of combining strategies. You don't go into a fight with just one trick up your sleeve. Oh, I got a really good spinning back kick. Okay, yeah. But you also need a good jab. You need a good right cross. You need a good roundhouse. You need a good front snap kick. Or you can't just win everything with just one trick. And that's what they're doing. They're using everything against us. Full spectrum. And add to that 5G.
Oh God, yeah.
I mean, we can just do another whole show just about on that. What, 5G? Because, I need to download some Netflix movie 10 seconds faster than I normally download it. I don't have 5G. I don't need any faster internet speed. I can watch every high-def movie I want. It doesn't stumble or cut out or anything like that. Why would I need something more? But it's not for your Netflix downloads. There's an ulterior purpose to that.
It doesn't matter how well equipped you are if you're, your neuro, if they fire this thing up and it's causing you to throw up and get sick and have a stroke on the ground. Oh well, you just got neutralized. And they can direct that apparently, like so that it's a directional type of radiation or frequency, so they can aim it at a crowd and just making them, just neutralized.
Yeah.
So it's pretty scary stuff.
Yeah, I'm thinking, I've been thinking about it for a long time, to do like a little sideline business, employing some of my own inventions, because, I've always been like this mad scientist type in my spare time. I like inventing things. I've always been very into science. But inventing screening methods to keep out the Wi-Fi and to keep out the 5G,
The funny thing is, they demonized lead paint many decades ago, and that would be something that I think nickel might have some kind of property to it that can do the same a little bit. But obviously, a lead shielding of paint in your house would be a good protectant for that if you just wanted a good sleeping environment.
Well, they've demonized the probably the best and cheapest way of protecting yourself from this Wi-Fi 5G stuff. And I love the way they did this. It's tinfoil hats.
Right. There you go.
Yeah, we need to be wearing tinfoil hats for real. Tinfoil hats, because they're trying to fry our brains. And I wonder sometimes if, the people that I see that have lost the spark, they don't have any brains left. They're so dumb. And I wondered, like, are their brains being fried right now? Is the Wi-Fi, cooking their cerebellum? Is that what's going on? Maybe if we put a tinfoil hat on them, they would, snap back to the cognitive thinking person they used to be when they were young or whatever. And
if you're self-conscious about it, guys, just put a liner of the tin in your regular hat. You don't have to show the shiny part on the outside. It's okay.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Get a brass woven. You can get it woven so it's like flexible, but it's brass. A brass screen that's flexible, and just put that in the inside of your baseball cap. Of course, we know other things like you can get a brass or a metal screen that you can put under your mattress, and you can plug it into the ground
Oh yeah, yep.
plug of your outlet.
Yep.
right? So that you're grounded. Yeah, it might come to the point where you need to wallpaper your bedroom with tinfoil and sleep under a Faraday cage. That,
Absolutely.
I'm not putting it past them because, I've studied frequencies for a long time. I did experiments way back in my 20s, so that'd be 45 years ago. I did all kinds of experiments on frequency, how it affects the brain. I had an EEG, and I did lots of experiments. I know that these frequencies can affect the way you think, and I've researched the subject, and I come across over 300 studies done by medical associations and medical research labs that prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that frequencies, electromagnetic frequencies, can completely change the way you think and can affect you in numerous ways, both positive and negative.
Hey, we've gone over a lot of stuff today, but and I don't want to burn you out because I think this would be a good thing to maybe do a check-in on a regular basis every couple weeks or so, and as a podcast. And I really appreciate all your time. I definitely think that we hit all the important things, and you're a wealth of information and a pleasure to talk to all the time. I'm glad I got to talk to you again. It's been too long, and I always appreciate and I always feel energized and my chest sticks out a little bit more every time because I'm like, yeah, you know what, I'm refreshed now. I think I know I can go a few more and take the hits and keep on going, and it's always a pleasure to be with. We didn't even get into how much of a SHIT show you trying to get across here to get to South Carolina was, and it's too
We'll
bad.
talk about that another time. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's another whole conversation. And you know what? It's funny you brought the golden thing because I was just listening to one of your other broadcasts, and I guess right now gold. You said you got it for like 2,500 like a couple of years ago. It's at 1940 now, and silver is at 25.57.
Yeah.
So it has. They're definitely holding those prices down as well.
Oh,
so.
they are. Yeah, they're suppressing the hell out of it. Like a week ago, it went up to 2,095 or something like that, right?
Yeah. Oh.
And I thought, and that's why I called my my bullion dealer. I said, I'm still getting my order right, even though it's gone up.
That's funny.
And then it crashed right back down to where it was before. So they're artificially suppressing it. But look, when the U.S. dollar is worth nothing, then you can put whatever price you want on gold and silver. $500 an ounce, $1,000 an ounce, $1 million an ounce. What does it matter when?
Right. They don't get to control what the prices are once everything is in upheaval. Especially
Exactly.
If they do communications with us, then we get to say what it is, person to person. It's not some guy in the Rothschilds banking industry telling us what it is.
Exactly. Like look back at the Weimar Republic in Germany during the 30s, where it would cost you 100,000 Deutschmarks to buy a loaf of bread. So what is it worth? What's a loaf of bread worth? And $10, $100, $5,000.
When you're starving, it's worth a mint.
Exactly. And when your money is worth nothing, people used to wallpaper their homes with $100 bills because it's worth nothing. Then gold and silver, well, that'll still be worth something.
I'm sure there's some places in Mexico that have the old pesos as wallpaper. All right, sir. It was great talking to you. I have to go take a look at a vehicle for my wife, and my daughter just hopped in the chair with me side by side. So
Awesome.
we will, yeah.
So everything is okay with Rebecca? Rebecca, right?
Yeah. I don't know if she got the information back on it yet, but so far so good. We'll find out when they tell us. But I don't think it was a big deal. I think it was just a lot of pain it was causing her. So maybe it was more relief.
Yeah,
than anything,
yeah.
But she's got other things going on. Got bad knees, bad wrists, everything else. So we're just trying to hit one problem at a time. Make it better.
Yeah. Well, look after your health. And like I wrote you, I said it's probably nothing. It usually is nothing. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. But on the other hand, it's uncomfortable. You don't want to deal with it. So
And
get
she really
healthy, get it
respected
fixed.
And cared about. Yeah, she really was happy and appreciative that you had expressed your concern for her. So I
Oh,
wanted to
yeah.
say thank
No
you.
problem.
Yeah.
No, you're a good family. You're a good man, Daniel. And I'm always on your side. Anything
Thank-
I can do to help, you let me know.
Yeah, and Stefan, because I have my daughter here right now, I will put. If you want to say something right now, go right ahead. Otherwise, I will do I'll do an add-on wrap-up and show go through your website and stuff like that. But if you want to promote anything right now, please go right ahead and do so.
No, I hate promoting myself. You do it.
Okay, good. Sounds good.
Okay.
That's the sign of a true gentleman with an honest heart, is what you just heard right there. Self-promotion is uncomfortable for people like that.
Yeah, no, I don't feel comfortable doing that. You're right.
All right, sir. Well, I was always once again fascinated and amazed by our conversation, and I hope to hear from you again soon.
Yeah,
You have
we'll
a
get
great
through
day,
this.
sir.
We'll get through this, Daniel. You're a warrior. You're a vet. I have all the confidence in the world in you, and I'm sure you, Rebecca, and the kid is going to be fine under your guidance.
Here. All right, sir. Thank you so much. Have
You're
a good
welcome. Bye, Daniel.
day. Fair Bear. You're awesome. All right, guys. We're going to look at Know Your Enemy. The reason I picked this one out, it's under 7 minutes long. It is a great video from Stefan Verstappen's YouTube channel, and it goes over a lot of what just happened to us the last couple of years, and even further into the past. But also, it's speaking from a strategy from Sun Tzu, and I all these elements I love. So we're gonna do this one. Let me just pop over to it, and then we'll take a look at it together. And for those of you listening, it's perfectly made for that type of format, so you're good to go. Okay? Let's do this right now. I will mute.
Know your enemy. Beat the grass to startle the snake. Agitate him and ascertain the pattern of his movements. Determine his disposition and so ascertain the field of battle. Probe him and learn where his strength is abundant and where deficient. From the book, The 36 Strategies of Ancient China. The internet has been a double-edged sword for the elite psychopathic banking class. On the one hand, they are able to track and surveil and manipulate billions of people. But the downside has been that information previously inaccessible to most people was now readily available. Never before in history have so many people awakened to the evil machinations of the Federal Reserve and the central banks, the phony money, the phony wars, the phony history, the phony science, the phony medicine, the phony education, and the fake media. After 200 years of being ruthlessly exploited, slaves were starting to get wise. We saw England vote to leave their masters in the EU. We saw the Yellow Vest protests in France trying to rid their country of the toxic psychopath called Macron. Millions in Hong Kong protesting against the most evil empire in the world today. Everywhere there were calls for separation from the communist state controls. And worst of all, their strawman puppet they thought would be laughed off the stage was wildly popular among the serfs, showing that many people, too many people, still held wholesome values. Then, somewhere in the deepest bowels of hell, among the discarded bodies of hundreds of missing children, came a command.
Shut it down! Shut it down forever!
And with that, the dark legions of goblins, ghouls, and trolls spread throughout the world to shut down free speech. Shadow ban, cancel, demonetize, deplatform, dox, and ban them. Ban them all was the communists' battle cry. And so, a state censorship program that not even Stalin could dream of was imposed on the people. Then they rolled out their big guns. First was a total martial law lockdown under the guise of a bogus plague. You can't go out. You can't run your small business. You can't go to school. You can't go out for dinner. You can't get together in groups. You can't go to the beach or walk your dog in the park. And you can't visit your dying mother in the hospital. The elite were so pleased with the results that there was a spike of missing children as the bankers and their minions celebrated their victory. Then came the follow-up attack, unleashing the weaponized idiots. Thanks to over 100 years of public education and the welfare state, there now exist on this planet more low IQ morons than have ever lived on this planet in all of history. This army of literal zombies ran amok, looting and burning like lunatics. I think the enemy rolled out all their dirty tricks too soon. They probably would have liked to boil the frog a little longer, but the growing threat of more and more people waking up forced their hand and startled the snake. But now we can better see the enemy before us. First, know that every country in the world that implemented social distancing is under the control of the loan shark cabal. Every congressman, senator, governor, member of parliament, mayor, even down to town councilors have either been indoctrinated, pressured, or paid off. We saw how the police were ordered to stand down during the riots, arsons, and tearing down of statues, but were quick to arrest ordinary citizens for not wearing a mask. The police are not on our side. The media, as if it's not obvious by now, is the enemy. They always have been. There never was a golden age of journalism. So now we know our enemy. The bankers, the media, and practically every government in the world. We are vastly outnumbered and outgunned. There is zero chance that an armed rebellion, or political party, or protest, or election would change a damn thing. According to Sun Tzu, there are only two strategies left to us now: escape and evade, and guerrilla warfare. You can either head for the hills, go offline, and hope they don't find you. Or you go guerrilla, outwardly a loyal party member, while secretly organizing a militia, establishing safe houses, creating black markets, engaging in smuggling and assassinations, and sabotaging the enemy at every turn. Of the two strategies, Sun Tzu had this to say: while a smaller force can escape a larger force for some time, if the larger force is persistent, the smaller force will always be captured in the end.
Very powerful, huh? Love the music he picks, too. Alright, so let me minimize this so you guys can see the YouTube channel. For those of you not watching this, the YouTube channel is by the name of the author, who is Stefan Verstappen. If you want me to spell that, it's Stefan Verstappen. Okay? His website is chinastrategies.com. So ChinaStrategies.com. And there you'll find the book he was just referencing, which was 36 Strategies of Ancient China. And the particular strategy he was referring to actually came from Sun Tzu's Art of War. Alright? And, you know, over on this website of his, you can also do a couple things. You can pick up t-shirts if you want to support him that way. You can click this little donate button here. The books his that he has here, right? And then he also has the survival library. And then there's community building course. And that is something that you can look into here and find as well. He has workshops, and you can also get a consultation from him. If you have specific questions you want to ask the survival expert. If you have concerns you can't talk to anybody else about, Stefan is the person to go to. Number one, he knows how to set people at ease. He knows how to make a frantic situation. He knows how to bring it down to a level to where, okay, now we're in a mindset to where we can actually do something about it. We're useful again. You know, if we were frantic before and we were counterproductive, but now we can think about this with a rational, calm mind and start seeing solutions that we didn't see before because we were too nervous, too anxious, too this, too that, too whatever, too stressed. So Stefan is great for bringing, you know, reeling you back in, you know, and that's why I highly recommend him if you want to do a consultation. I can't think of another person who would be better. Stefan Verstappen on YouTube. There is so much information there that you can look at. There's years and years worth of videos, and that was just one 7-minute video out of many, many more. So the ones that he also recommended is Paradise Stolen. The number 5 in that series is called Why We Are Poor, and then the other one called We Are at War. Okay, those two are his recommendations for you to also look at. But look at the whole thing. I mean, once you get into it, you'll be like I was, and it's like trying to eat one chip. You know, you can't do it. It's not possible. You want to gobble up the whole bag. So there's that, and I highly recommend it. Remember, these people do this stuff, and it takes time, effort, and care, and desire, and passion, and that's all worth something. So if you like what you're getting from them, show it in some sort of support. All right, you guys are great. I'm not going to self-promote this time. This is strictly for Mr. Stefan Verstappen. Stefan Verstappen, ChinaStrategies.com, and find him by his name, Stefan Verstappen, on YouTube. Thank you very much, guys. I hope you really liked this. I enjoyed it. I had a great time. Talk to you again. Bye.
Become wrath.